Good evening. On behalf of our organizers, Human Equation, I would like to thank the panelists and participants for joining us here today. I'm your moderator this evening, and my name is Vanita Krishnasamy, consultant for Human Equation and founder and director of At My Concepts, a boutique PR and communications company. The sixth series in our online forum is titled Embracing Digitalization for Business Continuity. There's no denying that the lockdown around the globe has made digitalization more imperative than ever before. How can companies jump onto the bandwagon seamlessly and with little confusion or pain as possible? Today we are speaking to industry professionals to find out more. We have with us here today Fong Lai Lyn, Sales Director of Messe Worldwide, Raja Teagarajan, President of Malaysian Industry 4.0 Association, and Sheran Gunasekera of Madison Technologies. Thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. So let's move on to the first question. The question is, we are already doing business digitalization 101, meetings, conducting businesses online. What other areas should companies be digitalizing for business process improvement?
A lot of people are actually looking at what is available in the market. So, where can people get support to fast track business digitalization and accelerate business growth?
There are many places, in fact, depending on what range of company you are in. Whether you're a startup, you can go to Magic, they will be able to give you a pointer or two or three in order for you to then find out what kind of tech support, what kind of digital solutions you can find in order to meet your requirements. Even as an NGO, like KL Society, BD Foundation, there are a lot of tech solutions out there that are made available for free for NGOs to apply in order to benefit from all these tech solutions to go digital. Like, for instance, in the last few weeks, we've all gone onto this whole platform of using Cisco WebEx. Now we're doing Microsoft Teams. We've gone to Zoom. We've gone to Google Hangouts. And all of these are actually part and parcel of what many companies actually use. And when you look at it, NGOs always tend to have the more losing end because they do not know what kind of solutions are available. And in this case, when you know that there are solutions for them that are completely free, you just to know how to obtain them, then you would definitely save a chunk of money. That's one. If you're an SME and you have no clue who you can get this kind of solutions from, MDEC is your best resource. MDEC has over 4,000 to 5,000 companies that they look after, including mid-tier companies that actually sell solutions that not necessarily have to be expensive. We always seem to think that digitalization is a very expensive part of business. In technical sense, you don't need to make it expensive. It's just what you need to know in order to make sure that it becomes, you could say, cost saving for your company. If you're not willing to spend that much money on, let's say, even doing this virtual meetings, then there are actually softwares out there that can make you use that services available to you for free. Just the other day, someone sent me what you call it, a link to say that now WhatsApp, usually only 4 per con call on your groups. Now they're going to enlarge that number to ensure that you can use WhatsApp rather than having to go through downloading Zoom, downloading WebEx, downloading so many of these things. And existingly, WhatsApp is already in your phone. So this means they are able to leverage on a free service that you need not have to then resubscribe or pay a subscription fee. This is, in one way, a good way to ensure that you are able to make use of the facilities around you, not having to go too far. Then you, of course, have Matre that also supplies you with some kind of funding. Like if you're going onto an e-commerce platform, but you have no clue how you're going to get onto that platform. Matre has this e-trade, what do you call it, program that encourages companies to go onto that platform to get themselves registered as an e-commerce player. So it can be any kind of product, from a machinery to a valve to a plastic packaging to food, or even service providers. They can all go onto this e-trade platform that Matrade has already worked in tandem with MDEC in order to ensure that people actually do take part in becoming more and more digital.
Thank you. So it's interesting to know, Lynn, that we have Magic, we have MDAC, and we have Martrade, and various other government agencies that SMEs or other companies can actually sign up for. Do they have to become members, or how does that work?
Predominantly for MDEC, there's no requirement to be a member to get this kind of services. What they will do is, in order to ensure that you are someone who's interested, they will put you through your paces, make sure they evaluate you, and so on and so forth. Martrade membership is free. Magic, no, not necessarily. They are all, again, government agencies that ensure that they are there to provide you that service that you need to move your business up the ladder. If we have to be members of all of these, I think me personally would be a member of 20 agencies already by now, since I deal with so many of them, right? Martrade, if you want to enjoy the subsidies that they give you, from a market development grant to mid-tier programs to go export, then yes, you have to be a Martrade member, and it's completely free anyway. Because why? Martrade has the pool of buyers that you want all over the world. We just shared earlier what is Martrade doing in this age where B2B meetings, physical ones, cannot take place. No more exhibitions to actually look at for now, right? And I said that they recently sent out a visual to document how many meetings they've had online, how many business meetings they were able to connect virtually, and also how many meetings they were able to then close and sign the deal together with the two companies. And this is across the world. Doesn't necessarily mean just between a Malaysian with another Malaysian, but a Malaysian with a Singaporean, Malaysian with a Kazakhstan company, Malaysian with a US company. So there have been an increase of trade, even though we don't see it very much in the physical sense of the word.
Interesting. Thank you, Lynn. Okay, moving on. I'd like to ask Sheran the next question. What are some of the internal platforms or support companies can use or get onto the digital bandwagon? The processes we can use. Sheran?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand that we're now in a very kind of wait and see mode, right? It's very uncertain, the future is. Like, everyone has to take a step back and reevaluate what the customer needs are for your specific business, right? And I think companies also don't, maybe having their revenue cut short, right? Because of either no customers, or they have no way to operate how they would normally operate. So I think research is a very key thing right now, right? Keeping our eyes and ears open, figuring out what sorts of products that we need when we align our business to this new norm, plus cost factors, right? Like, so we have to keep our eyes and ears open. Like, obviously we all want to start with free products. Like, so if you want to do your meetings, there's Google Hangouts, and there's a dozen other, not dozens, but there are other like free products that you can use. But then some of them come at the expense of like having to set it up yourself, right? So maybe you don't necessarily have that in-house capability, and then you'll have to look to, folks outside to help you with that. So I think it's more of a question of figuring out the right fit for your business. For example, like if corporates these days use things like Slack to communicate, right? The account of a Slack account costs like about 20 Sing dollars a month per user. That's pretty high, right? So you may want to look at cheaper options, but then that comes at a trade-off, right? Similarly, Zoom is about $15 a month for being a host, right? But then there are free products called, like, there's one called Jitsi, but then that requires know-how on how to set it up, right? And then you get the specialists, right? You can like, shamelessly self-promoting our company. What we do is we build products for other people, right? We have noticed our customers' needs changing significantly. They're no longer looking at those nice to haves, and they're looking now at like, what do we really need right now? So we have been doing a lot of research ourselves and trying to figure out what products people will need when we come out into this new norm. But those aren't necessarily going to be cheap, right? Like, we're purpose building it for you. So these are one-off solutions. So I think it's more of a case of researching, weighing your obviously your budget, and trying things. I think now is the time when it's um, while we're in this kind of holding pattern, to do a lot of research, to try things, to fail, and to figure out what works for you, so that when you come out at the end, you're pretty okay.
Right. So basically, I think what everyone is saying is that right now we are at a situation, or a time when we're using technology to generate new ways of thinking and doing business, right? And there's so many different platforms to use right now, whether they are free or whether you are going to subscribe for a certain amount. It really depends on what suits your business and the direction you're going to go to. I would like to ask the next question, Raja. What sort of skills or training is necessary in order to equip employees to embrace the digitalization moving forward?
Skills is to me it's been always a subjective matter. Like it really differs between industry to industry. Take an example of the new age of gig economy, where people are actually just going on a freelance job. There's no contractual obligations at all. But at the moment, during a MCO, they're the ones who are actually doing work, allowed to do work. So I do see a insurgence of the gig economy coming up. Likewise, certain industries who, like for example, the hospitality, would be struggling to actually have a full staffing, like for example, having to pay full wages and stuff like that, and then the hidden costs and all. So I think this is where they have to look at reskilling and upskilling their staff according to their processes or the knowledge base. At the moment, I do run a hotel, and I do implement a lot of cloud-based system, and I do reflect on the technologies that are required to kind of facilitate post-COVID, because people are not going to be traveling without being very certain whether they want to travel. So I have to give them the certainty that I've done the necessary cleaning and sanitization process. So therefore, my processes are coming into where there's little or no interaction between the guest walking in to checking out. So basically, I'm eliminating any sort of face-to-face interaction when it comes to hospitality, using cloud-based or artificial intelligence, and also the virtual reality that we have in place in the hotel. So now, how do we do this? We need to have the workforce be on board. Like for example, the top leadership, or we call it the leadership 4.0, where the board of directors, the managers need to come on board, understand what is required. Because without them understanding, if I was to just put in all these technologies, it'll be a waste. So I would start the awareness or the reskilling, upskilling at the top level with the managing directors, the owners, telling them, why are we doing this? In most cases, right, they are the baby boomers, and they have seen the business grow through the decades and generation and all this stuff. So their question is, why would I want to do this? If I can survive for the last century or decades, do I see this need? Currently, because of this peril, they do see the need, and the fact that they need to change, and that change requires them to have the mindset to accept the changes that's going to happen before having the entire workforce follow through. I can give you examples how even the Industry 4.0 has a lot of resistance towards change. A lot of companies, manufacturing or industries, were reluctant to make that change. But what we did, we had to go in, change the mindset of the owners and the managers before we actually tackle the problem of the entire processes. So people first, and then we go into the processes and the technology.
Right, Raja. Just quickly, would you be able to quickly explain to the participants today what Industry 4.0 is?
Okay. A question that I think Lynn will be more apt to answer.
A gist of what 4.0. Yes, Lynn. I know the word 4.0 has been going around. It's all, everyone sees it, everyone knows about it. Some know, some don't. For the benefit of our participants, what is the Industry 4.0?
I need to make sure that people don't misunderstand, because there's the fourth industrial revolution that people really truly 100% mix up with the Industry 4.0. So the Industry 4.0, we know it comes from the perspective of the manufacturing line, okay, in which machine talks to computer, computer talks to machine, robots. There's basically less people on the show floor. Everything is handled by AI, cloud analytics, data assumptions, predictive maintenance, refeeding of energy into the grid, thus making your manufacturing more efficient and definitely more cost savvy. That means you make a lot more money by doing so, although your initial investment is more expensive. I hope I got that right, Raja.
Well, you definitely hit the nail. It's more automated and also being more efficient by reducing the mundane or the routine jobs that is being done by having the machines do that. So, in other words, this is where the workforce needs to be reskilled and upskilled to do better jobs of understanding what the data means or the data analytics means. So, it actually functions in a way where we have to think beyond very Adam Smith kind of thing. Like, just one line. You have to think in multi levels.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Raja. Thank you, Lynn. What about you, Sheran? What do you think? What are the some of the platforms, some of the skills or training are necessary in order to equip employees to embrace, the current situation of moving forward with digitalizing their businesses?
I think the biggest thing is everyone has to learn to embrace change, right? Because that's coming for sure. And I know not all of us are good at it. The way I see it, you're going to have to do a lot of learning right now. So, as working adults, we've generally dropped that learning component completely from our lives, right? In exchange for work, for family, whatnot. So I think the skill to learn how to learn is one, and how to learn online, because a lot of the course material is going to be presented online, right? Those are going to be very key factors in how much you pick up, right? I mean, obviously, it goes without saying that the skills that you need obviously are like the basic skills like operating the computer, getting online, etc. All of that is absolutely necessary. But I think moving beyond that, learning online and then taking that initiative and then trying to better or to improve yourself is something we should all the message we should send down to our employees. And maybe as business owners as well, we should probably take some steps into building out a resource pool of educational material that is just available for our employees to tap into whenever they want, right? And then kind of drive that initiative where they're always seeking to kind of improve themselves. One other thing I wanted to touch on is obviously the physical connection is no longer there, right? The face to face, and something like some folks need kind of validation in their ideas or how they work, right? Like it's a lot easier to just lean over and just ask a colleague like, hey, what do you think of this idea or whatever. I think idea sharing is suffering a lot, right? That figuring out a way around that, either like it becomes more of a formal thing, right? Like it's like, hey, every Friday let's just have a call on brainstorming or whatever. But I think it's important to learn to stay in touch. Like my partner and I, we talk at least once a day. Like he's in Malaysia, I'm in Singapore, right? But we'll talk like 3-4 times a day. For us, the MCO isn't something new because we're used to working from home remotely, etc. But I think that communication, staying in touch with one or a group of your peers is very important outside of the formal kind of Zoom calls or what have you.
So I suppose what's basically been happening since the lockdown started is a lot of human in the aspect of human relations are missing. Although like you said, Sheran, it's important to be able to keep in touch as often as possible. I think communication is also key here. So any final words of advice for companies that are anxious about hopping onto the digital bandwagon? Can I start with you, Sheran?
Yeah, my advice would be don't jump the gun, right? Like be very mindful of why you're doing something in the digitalization space. Don't just copy everyone because they're posting a bunch of LinkedIn posts or what have you, right? Look at your business first, look at what your customers want, and then kind of slowly ease into it. I think, like how we all say in the startups, you try to fail fast, right? Like you try a lot of things. Essentially that means you're embracing trying many different things and trying to pick what's working for you or what's the right fit for you. So I'd say be a bit be a bit mindful in jumping on that bandwagon.
What about you, Lynn?
Actually, I don't even know whether there are a lot of companies who are anxious to jump on the digital bandwagon. Why I say so is because they're afraid. Just using a very simple analogy, you look at the pakcik who's selling nasi lemak, who depends entirely on human-to-human contact. And suddenly you have to thrust him into the digital world of selling his nasi lemak virtually. How does he do it? One, two is technical knowledge. If he has no clue how to use a Facebook page, how are you going to get him onto that particular bandwagon so that he can maximize his coverage so that people know he is still selling? So in this case, it's also about education. I think a lot of the times we forget that not all of us are equally educated. We need to make sure that all of us are on par to make sure we all move together on that path to digitalization. While we all have different ways of absorbing this kind of technology, so do the rest. The poor may not have a smartphone like we do or a laptop that we might have, but they do have other means and sources. So how do we ensure that they also get the same kind of benefits we do through digitalization? So I do think it boils down to education. If we don't outreach to them through that kind of platforms, maybe even going with a bus that is filled with computers, may not be the latest, but at least a bus that goes around to give them that kind of service in the outskirts. Terengganu, Kelantan, Perlis, Kedah, areas that may not have this kind of services available, and you go down and say, this is how you can get yourself on a digital platform. We will give you classes. We will teach you. This is why you need to be on the bandwagon. Once we do that, then I think we have a better sell on why we need to have a LinkedIn page, a Facebook page, a Twitter page, an Instagram page. Some people literally just do business through Instagram. And imagine if the pakcik can do it on Instagram, so can we, right? Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think something an initiative the government should take. Get a bus going around, and perhaps basically going out there to teach people in the outskirts of how to use the technology in order to do their businesses better. Because right now, as I said, times are pretty.
So times are pretty bleak, I would imagine, and people do not know how exactly to use things. I think Vanita has already kind of froze over there. Yeah, but times are not easy. So I would imagine that we have to take it upon ourselves, maybe talk to MCMC in this case, because they have the kind of resources that we probably don't have as an individual company. Work alongside with Maxis, DG, Celcom being the better one, because their outreach in the rural areas is a lot better than DG or Maxis put together in that case. Work with them, channel it so that all of these people have equal representation, equal participation in the digitalization of Malaysia.
Raja, what are your thoughts that you'd like to
Well,
conclude?
I kind of echo what Lai Lyn has actually said. Going back to the education system is very important because I know for a fact that our education system or the global education system is kind of obsolete. And the fact that any sort of information that you want to get at this day and age, you can actually get it from the internet. And the content is the most important aspect also. Whereas when it comes to the rural areas and all the stuff, when there's so many small micro businesses that are still mushrooming, they want to make a living. At the same time, they should have the upper hand in knowing how a smartphone works, because I think Malaysians' penetration when it comes to smartphones or internet is up to about 87%. Everyone has a smartphone. So, like what Lai Lyn said, like you can actually do business on WhatsApp, and it's just communication and making that awareness out there.
Hi, Raja. Sorry, I got cut off. Yeah, you were saying, Raja.
Going back to the education system, and also if there's a concentrated effort on consolidating all the agencies together, and making a thorough platform for companies to get their information on where the grants available, or how do I actually now go penetrate the market in overseas and all this stuff. Because in most cases, businesses are lost because once they reach through one agency, then they're told to look, if you want to expand, you have to go to another agency, and then it just follows on. And this is where a lot of people give up. We are in a position where Malaysians are more comfortable in where they are doing it. So here, I think they will take a step forward because they need to do this. They will change because a lot more applications now will come on board to their platform.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raja. Thank you very much. Okay, now we are open for a Q&A session. Any questions at the moment?
Well, I actually have a question for Sheran. Sheran, your company is in the business of designing architecture, framework, products, apps, platforms that will take people towards faster digitalization. Can you give us some examples of any requests that have come in since the lockdowns happened in Malaysia and Singapore, of what companies are wanting for your organization to do?
Sure. We've seen a lot of requests for education, either connecting teachers, connecting people who are skilled in a specific subject, and even kind of online classes where it's live, essentially. It's not pre-recorded, right? So we've seen a lot of that. We've also got some requests a little bit more on the a bit closer to the disease side, where they want to be able to either help on the quarantine side, or even figure out who came into contact with another person, right? So these are some of the examples that we have seen, and some of the requests that we've got. We recently got an interesting one where there is a requirement to connect volunteers with people who need essentially like it's like a volunteer, like an on-demand call center, if you will, or a hotline. So for example, if you want to talk or get something off your chest, there's a number, you call it, you obviously register your requirements for getting a call back, and then somebody will call you back and have that conversation with you. They'll be a subject matter expert, so they'll be telling you whatever it is that you want to know on that specific subject, right? So we've got a lot of kind of connecting groups of people together projects.
So I'll have to come to you. I'll be coming to you about designing a learning platform for me, Sheran.
You should. I also wanted to say I love your work from home series. It's hilarious.
Thank you.
So, any other questions? Do you have any other questions? Anyone? So, pretty interesting, right? What we have heard so far. Sheila, would you like to
wrap up?
Say something to end the session, or
yeah.
To do a little bit of a recap?
Yeah. Thank you, Vanita, for moderating this, and thank you to all our panelists, to Lyn and Raja and Sheran. It's been very, very informative, and I think what you have all managed to do is kind of in a way alleviate the fear about digitalizing. As you said, Lyn, people are afraid, and people are just not knowing where to go. So everyone's now on board. We're using different platforms to communicate. So we can do that. Okay, score 1 for everybody. Now, where do we go from here? How do we innovate from here? I'm seeing there's great opportunities for the tech industry, because everybody will be seeking something. Okay, even those who, as you said earlier, are a little resistant, and you have been fighting that battle for a while. Those who are a bit resistant would also turn around and say, hey, I don't want to be left behind. That guy's doing it. What can I do? What he's doing might not be what I need to do, as Sheran said, but I need to do something. So what do I do, and where do I go? I think the big question is now, what do I do and where do I go? And that's where I think people like you have such an important role to play. and instead also of waiting for people to come to you because they don't even know that you're there. See, so how do we reach out to people and make that noise, have those conversations, have those webinars, webcasts, whatever, to be talking about it? I think the predominant feeling going through all businesses now is there's a lot of apprehension. Where do we go from here? Because
Yep.
really the landscape has changed. It's been such a steep learning curve, and it's not going to stop after MCO. It's going to go on, and it's going to go on and on and on, at least until we get a vaccine and everyone's like, phew, okay, now we can go out into the world and mix around. So thank you very much for this. I think Shamila had a question here. What are some of the problems faced by Malaysian micro businesses in digitalization during this period? Shamila is editor of the FICOM magazine. So maybe you might, for those who might not be reading the chat, Raja, do you want to just...
Sure. I was just trying to, because that for micro businesses is quite unique because they go on a day-to-day operations, and the fact that they need cash flow, and for them to go on a digital platform during an MCO, it's kind of difficult. Although the government is actually giving enough handouts, but I think the handouts or the stimulus packages are targeting for the B40 group. I think the main concern or the agenda for the government is to support the grassroots. Second is basically the unemployment should not increase. So they put a lot of caveats and stimulus packages for government to subsidize some of the wages. So, but when it comes to businesses that is not here or there, there is very little expectations on how they can be getting any sort of assistance. From micro businesses, you can actually target BSN or even Tekon for giving certain amount of grants, 3,000 to about 75,000. Those are basically, you have to look at supplying information about your business to the banks. Now, I've been getting a lot of feedback from micro businesses also that commercial banks are treating this as a normal case, as in it is not on a severe basis like, it's a lockdown, I need the finances and all the stuff. They're treating it as a normal case in the sense that you're putting in a normal application and I'm going to vet it through as per normal. But you can't do that during this time. And this is where the associations are requesting the Bank Negara to kind of give a mandate to the other commercial banks to kind of elevate that requirement. The criteria should be solved.
Right. Thank you for that, Raja. So I'm done with my wrap up. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for being here and being so not just entertaining but also very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Raja, Sheran, and Lynn. Stay safe, everyone.